Great. Well, Mr. Brandon Vemos is our newest guest for Virtual Coffee House. Welcome to our newest episode. Mr. Brandon Vemos is the 2 times Grammy Award winning artist, musician, Pacifica Quartet founder, and cello professor at Jacob School of Music, Indiana University. Welcome, Mr. Vemos. So great to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Great. So let's start talking about this newest Grammy that you won this year, right? With the best performing chamber music album. And can you just talk us through the journey of building Pacifica Quartet, and then where did it start, and then how did it become a Grammy Award winning ensemble?
Well, okay. I mean, it all started, we were still in school, all of us, and I was finishing up a master's degree. And I had a friend, Samin Ganatra, who was, a serious violinist who happened to study with my parents. And we had played a lot together in the summers, in summer festivals, chamber music. And it was we knew it was sort of all of our passion, something that we really loved doing, and in particular, string quartet. So we started discussing. She had formed a quartet with some of her friends in Los Angeles, and they were sort of trying to, rehearse and become a quartet. And they had some issues, and they needed a cellist, and they called me up. I was just finishing my master's and asked if I wanted to join the quartet. And so I said I was excited about it. I was playing in a quartet at the time at Yale. It was kind of serious. And so we started rehearsing. We met over our vacation. We started rehearsing 8 hours a day on all of our vacations. And we just kind of went for it. It was, I have to say, my personal journey being studying with Paul Katz, who was in the Cleveland Quartet, being around him and hearing that quartet and the repertoire that they played and what his life was like, it just seemed so exciting. And playing in a quartet is such a very special way of communicating. It's a very personal medium, for like-minded players, string instruments, and the repertoire that's written for the string quartet is so special. All the great composers, they wrote some of their best music for string quartet. So there was a passion there. And I think that's when the Pacifica Quartet started, we had that incredible desire to work really hard and become a string quartet. And it was a struggle for years. Yeah, never easy. But so the path to, getting a Grammy and all that, it's a long kind of arduous path, had its ups and downs.
Can you talk more about the struggling part? What are some of the biggest issues you guys face in terms of just getting yourself out there?
Well, initially, when we started as a quartet, nobody knew who we were. We had no recognition anywhere. So I feel like I was lucky with the group that the original Pacifica was very sort of go-getters, not afraid to sort of reach out to people. I don't know if that was my personality, but being around them, I sort of learned a lot from knowing that when you're young, you have to kind of make things happen. They don't just fall into your lap. And that group was really good at reaching out to people. We entered every competition. We reached out to presenters. We reached out to other string quartet players, the older generation. We played for many people. We went to many festivals, like we went to the Aspen Music Festival early on and a bunch of different places where we were already trying to get ourselves into the scene of the chamber music world, which is quite small. I think put yourself in positions where people can hear you is a challenging thing. So we did that. And I think that was, I often tell my students, if when you're trying to begin your career, you have to be proactive. You can't just sit there and think, well, if I play well, that's all I need to do. And then you have to work hard. You have to sound as good as you can. But at the end of the day, you also have to put yourself out there either by taking auditions, playing for as many people as you can.
So do you guys have to always, publish your own music, your own album, or do you guys eventually have a management or someone doing it for you? Or how did that work?
In the beginning, we had nothing, we started doing competitions because, and it was never my favorite thing to do, to prepare for a competition, but it does give you some recognition and it opens up doors. And that's just how things work, So we did a lot of competitions. And one of the early competitions we did was Concert Artists Guild, which is, you're probably familiar with it. It's an organization in New York that gives which I think is the best prize you could ever get in a competition, better than money and appearances, is management. And we were lucky to get that, which gave us, that first year, maybe 30 performances around the country, often in very small venues, in small towns was fantastic because we were able to learn repertoire, not get up in New York City on a big stage and, play a, repertoire we didn't know well as a young quartet. We were able to get our feet wet and get a lot of experience, make a little bit of money. I mean, we struggled financially for years, but I think that gave us a big start, having that management. And then we lived in Chicago, and eventually we got the notice of a very great music recording label, Sadie Records. And they took a chance on us early on to make a recording of a composer, a Chicago composer, Easley Blackwood. And that relationship has been there for now almost 30 years. So I think we were lucky in a way to have that opportunity, but beginning to record early has taught us a lot. I think the recording process has always makes us a better quartet. So that's kind of how that came about.
Amazing. Yeah, I feel related to that a lot. I think in terms of management for musicians or artists in general, I think especially classical musicians, that putting yourself out there is very important. And I think with management that helps a lot, because for now I am like into this content creating realm or industry, and I'm basically doing everything for myself. And that's a lot of work. So if you can have someone who can like just help you out there and then publish content for you, that's by all means great help for sure. Yeah, I think musicians need that.
I think you're absolutely right. I think what you're doing, I think young musicians today, I think it's even harder than when I was, at your age. Like the fact that what you're doing here, this outlet for you and creating the space, that's amazing. And those are the kinds of things that I think right now young musicians have to be incredibly creative in how they get themselves out there. It's not always easy to find management, but you can do a lot of that on your own.
Exactly.
That work that we did on our own got us in the position to be noticed by a manager or to do that competition. I think what a lot of people look for is people who have a couple of things: incredible drive and passion to do what they want to do, like an energy. That means incredible work ethic and willing to do things that are not easy to get where you want to go. I mean, some people give up. Some people say, well, that's just a lot of work, or I don't want to go do that competition because it costs money, or that's an investment in money that I don't have right now. You have to take risks to get where you want to go. You have to risk doing a project that, might fail. And you have to be dedicated. Those are the most important aspects. I think a lot of people think, well, I'm a really good player. Why shouldn't I get these things? And that's not how it works. Even people who are taking orchestral auditions, you take 20 before you have that success. And so I think people who don't give up, people who are committed, have success.
Right. And, again, as much of work aspect, I feel like there's doing content creating, whatever it is. I feel extremely fortunate and lucky to live in this, period of life, because again, as you said, back in the days for you, we didn't have like podcasts, we didn't have YouTube, TikTok, whatever platform, multi-platform marketing for free for artists. You can just like make things and then maybe you go viral, right? I'm fortunate to have like over millions of views and then thousands, hundred thousands of followers on social media, but it takes a lot of work. But again, I'm fortunate I did all of that for free, so it's very fortunate to be alive in this period of time.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, because you're right. We didn't have those social media outlets, so it was very hard to do it. I think in a way it was much harder to do it on your own. But now, like what you're doing, you can create that visibility without the help of the powers that be.
Right.
You can work and make it happen yourself, which is amazing.
Right. It takes more work, but I think again, management takes some cuts out of your profit as well, and it's management, but doing yourself, it's more work, but it's in a way more free, and you're in control of what you want to put out there, which is pretty fun. So
very true, very true. Yeah.
All right, so Mr. Ramos, you're going on tour soon. I heard from our phone call yesterday. Can you just take us through like a typical day in life when you're on tour with the quartet or orchestra or anything?
Yeah. So for us, I mean, the preparation for a tour is weeks in advance, months in advance. We have a tour, and we don't like to go for extended periods of time because, for our lives now, when we have families, when you have students, it's not easy to be gone for an extended period. But we have this period of January before school starts where we're going to be gone for 8 days, and we're playing 6 concerts. So in those 6 concerts, there's a lot of repertoire that we've been asked to play, that the presenters have asked us to play in multiple concerts. So we have like maybe 7 or 8 pieces that we'll be playing on that tour, which means a lot of rehearsal to be prepared for that. So this previous month we've been, and actually some of that is new repertoire that we want to add to our list of pieces we're playing. So we've been rehearsing a lot. So a lot of it is that preparation. The tour begins on January 5th, and we have an early flight, and we head out to Portland, Oregon, and then there's events. It's what I think young musicians don't always realize is that it's not just show up and play a concert, but there are things that happen outside of that. For example, there might be a donor dinner where you meet with the donors for that series, and just being there, talking to them is an incredibly important thing to do. To like reach out, because in a way, being in a quartet is like a small business. You have to maintain the relationships, which I actually quite enjoy, because I think a lot of these people that we meet with are incredibly interesting, incredibly and devoted to. They love chamber music. They love music, and that's what makes our field work. These people. So we have dinners. We have some outreach activities where we might go play. For some people that won't be able to come to the concert. And then night after night, we move from place to place. Some of it's driving. We'll be in Oregon, so we'll play in some towns outside of Portland, but we have a couple of concerts in Portland, Oregon, and we have a concert in Phoenix. So we get on an early plane, we play a concert, we get the next morning, an early flight to Portland, play a concert, drive to the coast of Oregon. It's very busy, and it can be exhausting. Some days I wake up and I have a 6 a.m. flight, and I have to get out of bed at 3:30 to get to the airport. Right. And you wake up and you're like, what am I doing? How am I going to survive this day? Yeah. And you get some coffee and you get in the airport and you sleep a little on the plane and you arrive there, and then you're energized again. But it's, by the end of this week, we're going to be very, very tired. I know that. But at the same time, the energy that we get from those concerts and being in these different environments is inspired. It gets us motivated.
Right. So most of the energy we spend on road trips, it sounds like, it's very exhausting. So how do you stay focused consistently from the first concert all the way to the last one? How to keep that energy going?
I don't know. For me, knowing that I have to walk out on stage, I can't not have that energy. I don't know. It doesn't even matter if it's in a big venue in front of a lot of people and in a big city, or if it's in a small town. I don't want to not play my best, and don't want to. I feel a responsibility that they're coming to the concert, that we can communicate and connect with them. And I don't know. I've always felt that way. People talk about, you can get burnt out, but I think I have like a high adrenaline factor that when I walk out on stage, I have nerves and I want to play well. As I get older, though, it's important that I get enough sleep. So these early morning flights can be difficult. Sometimes I realize, as opposed, maybe when I get to the hotel, I need to sleep a little bit. I'll play better that night. I used to say, let's go out and have a great lunch somewhere and have fun, and maybe I'll meet with some friends. I don't do that anymore. I take a nap. I try to eat well. I just lay low. Maybe I'll exercise a little bit, and then I'll warm up. And I'll go to the venue. We have a rehearsal and we play the concert. I think you have to take care of yourself, especially if it's night after night. You have to pace yourself and say, when can I get enough sleep? And these early flights, they make it hard, because when you sit down in the concert hall that night, you have to have 110% focus to play your best. And I think, you're not always in control. And I think when I first started the quartet and we first started touring, I was kind of thrown off, like, wow, this is really exhausting. This is not how I'm used to playing. When I'm at school, I make sure I sleep well. And then, I have lots of time to practice. I'm not thrown in this direction and that direction. When you're on tour, you might have to do a radio interview or an outreach concert on the day of your concert. And so you realize that, it's not as relaxed as you might think, and you can't put all your focus on that evening concert. So there are challenges for sure.
Right. Yeah. We kids out there, I think, don't realize how physically demanding playing instrument is. I think it's a combination of physical work and mental work, which is doubling the exhaustion. But all right, let's shift the conversation a little bit to the education aspect, because you are an educator at one of the best music schools in the world. Talking about auditions, right? You took many auditions for competitions for your quartet, etc. How do you think students can best prepare for their college auditions, as we are entering a new college audition season?
Yeah, that's a great question, because my head is really in that world now, having students who are taking auditions and also being on the other side of it for a number of years now, sitting there and listening to 3 full days of auditions where we for 4 or 5 hours in a row, every 10 minutes, a new person comes in, and how hard they've worked to get there.
Exactly. Yep.
And how important it is for them to play well, and the nerves that they have, the money they put in to get there. So, I think on my end, when I'm listening to auditions, we have a lot of sympathy for the people who are auditioning, and we want them to play well. We want it to be a good experience for them. But, we also are hearing many, many people, and we have to make the difficult decision of who is getting accepted. I think the preparation has to be immense for these auditions. And what I notice is that sometimes people don't prepare in the best way to play their best audition. I think some people don't realize how nervous they're going to be when they get there, because you have such a small window of time to show what you can do.
Right.
And I think the reason is that people don't practice or prepare in the way of a performance for their audition. You know what I mean? They go to their lessons, they play well, that seems to go well here, but you have to get in the mindset that you're going to get up and play, and it's going to be scary, and things aren't going to go as planned. You have to put yourself in that position weeks before that first audition in January. And I tell my students this all the time: play for each other, pull in 4 or 5 people, pretend it's your audition, play in every studio class you can. Because the more you have that experience of playing that repertoire, the more confidence you'll have. You'll say, okay, I was nervous here. I played at this level. The next time I play at this level, now I know how it's going to feel, and I can control that, and I have confidence that I can do it. If you're just practicing and then you show up at your first audition and you're like, well, okay, I'm fine. You walk in there and boom, that adrenaline starts flowing. You're not going to play your best. And your level should be here, and it's way down here. So you have to make sure that your level is here, and you're confident, and your performance level is here. And so we see that a lot. I see people come in, and you see them struggling with the nerves, and they're not playing at their capability. But at the same time, you have to judge them based on how they played that day.
Exactly. Yep.
I don't know if that helps, but I think it's really important, even when you're practicing for the audition, that every day you run the things that you're playing, and you tell yourself, okay, this is what it's going to feel like. Imagine you're in the audition. I can make myself nervous by myself. I put the video camera on and I see what I'm doing. And then you also analyze how it went. What was good? What was wrong? Did I have a memory mistake here? How can I fix that? How will I get out of that? And you have to be really intense about your preparation. And then I think you can play at a level that you'll be happy with. But that's what I see from the auditions, and also seeing my students when they struggle. It's usually that kind of, they're missing that kind of preparation.
Right. I'll tell you a funny story. When I auditioned for my first school ever, which was Northwestern, you can never prepare enough, because what happened to me was I did all of that, right? I did all of that. I played for my friends who are even not music majors. But the thing happened was I went to the hotel, and I was 19 at the time, and in Illinois is only 21 to check in. So I was struggling to even check in the hotel. And after I checked in, the fire alarm went off 3 times that night. So I barely got any sleep, and I thought, okay, I'm literally screwed. But I think because I did all the practice for people who are not even musicians, that really got me nervous. I actually played pretty well, surprisingly, in the audition. So again, yeah,
Yeah.
100% agree. But that's the funny story right there happened to me.
That's exactly what happens. And
Right.
you're also traveling, and you're not used to traveling probably at that point, and you were probably at such a level that it was almost in a way automatic. I mean, you had probably prepared yourself in such a way that that's what you were going to do because you worked so hard to get there. And that's kind of how you have to be. It has to be, even under the worst circumstances, no sleep, incredible nerves, being in a different place and having to get from the hotel to the place, and how much is there a room to warm up in? You might be cold. You're still going to play at that level. And so it's, in a way, I think what you're saying is over preparation to get to where you need to be. Yeah.
Right. And it was intense. It was intense for the whole, morning to early afternoon. I didn't get any food, and you have to be in that mode because you never know when they're calling your name. So
yes, very true, very true.
All right, let's talk about in terms of recruiting, right? What do you really look for in a student? I always ask. It's so interesting to ask professors this question. Like, do you always look for the best talent? As you know, classical music industry is very talent demanding, or do you look for the hardest worker, or is there anything else that you look for in a student?
That's such a good question, and for me, it's changed a lot. I think I'm more experienced. I want out of a student that I'm going to work with, because it can be a 4-year lengthy relationship. 4 years or 2 years or whatever the degree is that you're having. And for me, it's very important that I have some contact with the student. It's not just about the audition, because you don't really get to know somebody in a 10-minute audition. You don't know personalities. You don't know the working relationship you will have. So for me, on my end, and I think on both sides, it's important to have that connection to know how it's going to be like, because you're meeting 15 times a semester for an hour, and then probably a lot more than that with studio classes and scales classes and extra lessons and recitals. So it's a ton of time, and you want to know that on my end, I want to know that somebody who's open to working, to ideas, who's not afraid to try things. And I think working hard is very important. Dedication. I think I look for somebody who I think has a real passion, that they really want to do this, because the music world is tough. And if they are a little bit unsure, it can be difficult. However, I have other students who are kind of doing a degree where they are still focused on other sides of their education. And I don't frown upon that either. I think having possibilities because of the difficulty of the career is okay, as long as they're still willing and committed to working hard on their instrument. So a lot of it has to do with the dedication. And I think, a lot of people play their instruments well, but I also look for somebody who has something to say musically. They portray an instinct for music. If it just seems like they're playing by rote and they're just going through the motions and they're not really communicating, I'm less interested in wanting to work with somebody like that. To me, it can be, some of it is that natural musical instinct, and I think that's really important.
I'm a big supporter of doing something musical and other. I started as a music major and economics at Northwestern, because I feel like now we are in a world of and is better than either or. I think it's always good to have other perspectives besides music. As I went to an art school so for 2 years, and a lot of my perspective was only music but nothing else. And then my teacher sort of opened up that window saying, okay, Steven, you probably should go to a university that opens more perspectives. And I would say Jacobs would totally do the same. And I'm taking business classes, I'm taking entrepreneurship classes. That's mainly why I'm doing this. So yeah, 100% agree. And then on that point, for sure. Okay, we're coming to the one of the last few questions here. So this is a question I think all the students wants to know, right? So from your past years of teaching, what kind of student gets the most scholarship on the audition day?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're being judged on your playing,
right?
Because this is a music field. So when it comes down to it, it's playing. You're often given a number by a committee of musicians, how many of them are in the room, and they give a number to what they think that person brought to that particular audition. How objective and fair that, on any given day, people play differently. And then on any given day, you have different people with different views on what they're looking for. So it can be tough, but I think you have to rise to a certain technical level. That just has to be there in our field. It's competitive, in terms of intonation, having a beautiful sound, clear articulation, all those, just basic technical things have to be there. And then communicating. And so, there are times where I'll hear somebody and maybe I see that they're not totally there yet as a player.
Yeah.
But they have something that's like, that they're thinking about the music, that they feel it. It's coming from inside of them. There's a natural way of playing. And so I want to give them a little higher score because, or I might even be more interested in working with them because when you sit in a room for 4 hours, if you look at it from our side of it, you're sitting there, you're hearing one person after the other. And after a while, and you're hearing the same repertoire.
Right, a lot of overlapping.
A lot of overlapping. Dvorak Concerto, Haydn D, the clarinet world. I'm sure there's a limited repertoire that they're going to hear.
Yes.
You kind of want somebody who's going to put some life into that process. They come in, they have something to say. It gets you excited again. I think that's really important. And I think pretty much everybody notices that, I don't think you want to overdo it. You want to come in there and make sure that you're playing at your best, but get excited. I think when I can tell when somebody comes in, they can control their nerves. They're kind of excited to be there and they put something into the music. And I think that heightens that score that we have to give them. Well, at the end of the day, it's like you got a score and that score relates to the scholarship you get. Recommendations, those things help. I think we look at recommendations to know if this is somebody that other teachers have enjoyed working with. Right now I love my studio. I feel like everybody in my studio is just the personalities. It's like one of the best studios I've had in terms of how we all relate, how supportive everybody is. And so on my end, it's important that I find people who will make that studio, will create an environment that's the best for learning. So when you look at recommendations, you see, oh, well, this teacher really loved working with the student. Or there's a red flag there, maybe that they were difficult to work with or they didn't work hard enough, and then you have an idea of that side of the student outside of their playing. They could play amazingly well when you look and you see that and you're like, well, this person didn't play as well, but I would really love to have that person in my studio with all that time that we're going to be spending together. So I would say recommendations are pretty important, and you just have to hope that, I would suggest applying to a number of places so you have options financially,
right?
Because I know how expensive it is now.
It is.
It's such a burden for students to have to go to school and have to take out loans and begin in a career like ours that's so difficult, to have to start their career trying to make money, but you're also already paying $250, $300 a month just to pay back what you owe from being in school. So I think it's important to be careful about that.
Yeah. Student loans actually fail, I think, a lot of students because they don't really know what they're signing up for. They're getting into it. So, okay, one of the last two questions here. So from your understanding, right, of music education at a university or at a conservatory, whatever, from your perspective, what do you think is missing from most of your students' education or anybody in the music world, but musicians still have to learn that is really necessary for them to succeed in the long term?
Well, I think a lot of what we're talking about today already, I think what you're saying and what you're doing is the right path to be on. I look at exactly what you have to say and how you've gone about in your musical life so far is right on the money. It's being passionate, being devoted, loving what you do, making sure that you really enjoy it. If you're not enjoying it, then you have to reevaluate that. But but I think having creativity and being willing to understand how the field is changing and what you can do to be a part of that. And like you said, the word "and," I like that. Play great, and this and this and this and this. What you can offer, be a well-rounded musician. Play chamber music. Work on your orchestral excerpts. Do new music. Be open to new music, learning new repertoire, because our field has to grow. We can't just play Beethoven. We have to play the composers that are writing, our colleagues. Be an entrepreneur. Do things on social media. Also think about the future. A lot of people come in as undergrads, and all they think is, well, I have to practice 5 hours a day. I have to go to orchestra rehearsals. You have to think about what you want in music. What kind of life would be great for you? For me, when I was 22, it was playing in string quartets. That's what I wanted to do. I didn't know if it was a possibility. I didn't know if I would fail at it, but I knew that this was better suited for me than playing in an orchestra. I also knew I loved teaching. So I was able to make in my life, and I'm not special. There are so many great players. There are so many great players, great musicians. It wasn't that, wow, how successful I was on the merit of just my playing. It was every day getting up and doing it and giving my best. And then the next day waking up and doing it. To me, that's more important than, pure talent.
And both turned out to be great. So
I definitely feel lucky, and I feel like I have one of the greatest musical lives I can have for myself. And that's not going to be the same for many other people. But if you think about it when you're young and say, well, this is my ideal life in music. I want to play in the CSO, or I want to teach at any university. I just want to be a teacher. I want to work with high-level students. And I'll have to say one thing about the career of teaching. I don't think any musician now can live without that side of it, being a teacher. And for me, my teaching has taught me more than probably anything else I do. If I were to go back in time, I would say, as a young musician, start teaching early, start thinking about teaching early, understanding it, because it's a lot harder than, in my opinion, than performing, than playing in an orchestra. It's a lot harder. So I don't know if that answers the question about what should be taught in schools, but that maybe, to me, answers what I think students should be thinking about, because they might not get it, but I think you can find it. Like at IU, we have a little bit of everything. We've got new music ensemble, we have Baroque groups, we have orchestral training, we have chamber music, string quartets. It's all there, theory, all of that at a very high level. You have to look for what you want, and you have to put it inside of your education. You can't just sit back and say, well, this is what they gave me, this is what I'm going to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Be creative with your education. Yeah. I'm spending some time here, with Henry, my dear high school roommate at IU. And I have to say, I'm really blown away by the music department here. It's a lot of great resources here. People can take great advantage of. Unlike some universities, it's very small, but here it's huge. So kids can really come here and have a great start in their career, I believe. All right. So one last question I like to ask every single of my guests, if possible, is if you look back, right, to your younger self, or your college version of yourself, or when you just started in your early career, what would you say to your younger self, and what would you change? What would you do differently?
Yeah, well, I answered a little bit just a second ago. I think I would be, if I were to go back in time, I would say how I practiced. What I remember of my practicing up until I was 22 or 23, I don't think was as effective. So I think I wasted a lot of time. I could have improved faster. I could have been more aware of how I was practicing. Just knowing how to practice, how I practice now, and how quickly I can fix things, as opposed to when I was, and of course, a lot of it is a learning thing. You learn these techniques as you go, but I would try to understand those techniques sooner, because I think it would have saved me a lot of frustration in the process. So I guess listen to your teachers, because they know stuff. they've gone through that process and listen to how they say how to work. Because I think 90% of it is knowing how to practice slowly, carefully, correctly. Any instrument, right. For the clarinet, I'm sure there are so many techniques, just knowing how to analyze what you're doing. And when you're playing, instead of just going over something over and over and getting frustrated, figuring out what it is that's going wrong, being analytical, it will save you so much time. And don't be in a hurry. Don't get bogged down, which is also something that happens.
Getting stuck, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's two sides of it. I see students who everything has to be perfect, so they don't get through anything because all they think about is playing those 5 notes in tune and they can't move on. You've got to know how to practice carefully and then play things in progression. But I would say definitely learning how to practice.
Learning how to
For
practice.
Me. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Mr. Vamos, it's such an honor and pleasure to speak with you. I had a great time, and thank you for answering those questions with great answers. So yeah, thank you for your time. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm really impressed with what you're doing. And this has been a lot of fun. I enjoyed talking about these things, and I hope it helps. If anybody has any questions, they can always email me. I'm happy to respond, especially now when I have a little bit of break. So yeah, it's a real pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, if anybody wants a lesson or a study with Brendan Vamos, I'll definitely put them in touch for sure.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
Thank you so much. Hopefully we can meet in person sometime.
I would love that.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Mr. Vamos. Have a good one.
Take care. Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Yeah, see you.